My father was born in what is now called North Korea.
Okay.
And the stories that he shares about the hunger, pulling out grass from the ground to consume it, because it was the only thing that he could think of to satisfy hunger pangs.
Wow.
This is a story not just from 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a story that's happening right now. I would try to remind people that our God is a God of the nations.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Chasing Elephants podcast. I'm literally right now in the Inland Empire in California. We just are in the midst of our Lift Tour SoCal event, and I'm excited that not only do I have a dear friend and brother, someone who is an amazing author, pastor, speaker. He actually just got through speaking to several hundred students here in the Inland Empire, but he's just become, in a very quick period of time, just a dear friend, and that's none other than Pastor Eugene Cho. And so, Pastor Eugene, thank you so much, one, for just, preaching the gospel. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you'll probably hear a little yelling in the background. They're getting ready to go to lunch, and so, that's how we do it. After your session, we send them to lunch. And so,
Sounds good.
but I wanted to have an opportunity, because right now we're going into the Thanksgiving season, and as Brent and I, we've talked about the importance of having an attitude of gratitude, talked about the importance of generosity. We coming up into the Giving Tuesday season.
Yep.
But Pastor Eugene, outside of being an author and a pastor and a thought leader, for those who may not know, Pastor Eugene will be with us at Youth Pastor Summit, so you don't want to miss that. He speaks, like I said, for us in a lot of our events. But you have a phenomenal work that you're doing in Washington, D.C. called Bread for the World.
Yep.
And so I thought it'd be great for us to just share and talk about that. So one, welcome to our Chasing Elephants podcast.
All right.
And but tell us a little bit about Bread for the World. What is the work all about?
Man, Jeff, first of all, thank you so much for having me, not just here, but the privilege of partnering with you and SLU in numerous places. It's one of the highlights that I have, is to encourage and to meet leaders, young people. So Bread for the World is a 49-year-old Christian advocacy organization started by a pastor in Lower East Side, New York, some time ago. And the pastor realized that there were people in his church that was struggling with hunger, which is not an uncommon story, right? For many of us who are in ministry, whether in youth group or adult ministries, that there are women, men, and children, families within our congregations that struggle with hunger. And if we're honest, some more in certain zip codes than others. And so they were doing pantry ministry and feeding ministry and compassion ministry and benevolence ministry. But they realized it was not only still there, but growing. He connected with other pastors, very common story. And they began to realize, in addition to having a food pantry ministry, they needed to do more.
Wow.
So you fast forward, Bread for the World started because we want to also work on, affirming churches and leaders and companies and private enterprises, but also urging our elected leaders to also do their part as well. And this might be shocking. The United States, this is not disputable, is the wealthiest nation in the world.
Sure, absolutely. 100%.
And yet, we have 14 million children and teenagers that struggle with food.
Really?
In this country.
14 million.
14 million. And here's the thing. I bet you if we had a round table with youth pastors from different places, they could tell you that when they serve like snacks or meals in their youth group, it's not just for the sake of fellowship.
Really?
That there are youth pastors that I've spoken with that say that for some of their kids, it's one of the few occasions in which they can get food.
Wow.
And so my big calling is bread. And what I mean by bread is to proclaim that Jesus is the bread of life. And as Jesus had compassion on people who he knew that they were hungry, he also wanted them to be nourished. And that's what I love about this theology of the whole gospel. That we should be passionate about preaching that Jesus is the bread of life.
Yes, sir.
And also ensure the holistic health of the people that we get to serve. And so, Bread for the World, we're not a food bank, we're not a church pantry, we're not direct relief. I spend, along with my staff, the entirety of our time doing research, doing analysis on policies and legislation. We have a group of people that meet with the White House and Congress on a regular basis. And then we have pastors and organizers all around the country that try to mobilize people as we meet. I'll just give you one example.
Yeah, no, definitely, please.
Right now, we're working on a legislation called the Farm Bill. As a pastor, I wish I had known something about the Farm Bill, but I didn't know about it until later on. The Farm Bill is the most important nutrition legislation in the United States.
Really?
It oversees something called SNAP, which is modern day food stamps. So about 42.5 million Americans rely on food stamps to help supplement their diet, if you will. It also oversees some international programs called Food for Peace, McGovern Dole. This program that I'm sure most folks will not have heard of has helped serve, through American taxpayer money over the years, 5 billion meals around the world.
Wow.
So I am a proud American citizen of a country that we can all acknowledge is not perfect. We all want it to become more. But I'm a proud American citizen, and I want to make sure that portions of our taxpayer money should be, can be used for another part of human flourishing. And what I mean by that is, try to imagine a child or adult flourishing without being nourished, whether here or in a different country. So Bread for the World does that work around advocating, speaking up, showing up at tables where discussions and decisions are being had. We want to make sure, hey, we believe that as a Christian organization comprised of people that love God and want to love our neighbors near and far, we want to encourage you, please remember people that are struggling with hunger, whether it's this Thanksgiving season or really just throughout the year.
That's so good. Wow. And what I love about what you're doing through the work at Bread of the World is this is something that is bipartisan, right? You know, this is, you know, when you think about the whole deal, I think that's something when I say bipartisan, something that we can all kind of get around and say, man, this is something that we can agree. We need to make sure that we address this issue. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, yes and no. And what I mean by the yes and no is no one is calling their Congress folks now and saying, hey, I want people to go hungry. No one does that, thankfully.
Fair.
We have never met anyone. And I spend the majority of my time, again, with the White House and Congress. It's a challenging job. I've not had a single conversation where someone says, you know, I like the fact that we have 14 million children that are hungry. But people disagree on solutions. And that's okay.
That's fair.
That's fair. They disagree on solutions. And then they also disagree on how do we get this funded.
Got it.
So, of course, we all want to reduce the number of children that are hungry to zero someday. But there are disagreements on how do we get this funded in a challenging time when, you know, as people that might know, there's a tremendous deficit here in this country. What we're trying to urge people is, elected leaders, is we acknowledge that deficit is a huge issue. It's not going to be balanced on the back of our neighbors who are struggling with hunger. I think we should prioritize people that are experiencing hunger and poverty.
That's good.
This is not meant to be handouts. You know, this is about making sure. And what we've learned is that many people that are on SNAP, modern day food stamps, it's not a perfect system. But by and large, we know that the majority of the people that are on SNAP, they're not just working one job, two, sometimes multiple jobs that are just trying to get by. I'll say one more thing.
No, it's good.
You know, my wife and I, we relied on a federal safety net called WIC, which stands for Women, Infant, and Children.
I know WIC.
Okay, so
I know WIC.
We went through a really difficult season when we were planting a church. The church plant didn't quite go as we thought it was going to go. It's unemployed, didn't have insurance, and didn't have enough food to feed our children. And it was that safety net that really helped us in a difficult season.
Yeah.
My father was born in what is now called North Korea.
Okay.
And the stories that he shares about the hunger, pulling out grass from the ground to consume it, because it was the only thing that he could think of to satisfy hunger pangs.
Wow. Oh, man.
The sad part is that this is a story not just from 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a story that's happening right now.
Wow.
And I know that there's a lot of polarization in our country and sometimes even in our churches. I would try to remind people that our God is a God of the nations. God loves the nations.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that we should not prioritize people here in this country. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about a slow but a growing thought about America only. That our compassion should only be here.
Yeah.
Because I think it contradicts this theological truth that God loves the nations. And so I think about the 45 million children right now, as you and I are talking, 45 million children right now who suffer from something called wasting, which is the most devastating form of malnutrition.
Wow. Wasting.
I don't want to sound dramatic, but when you're in that state, you're not sure if that child is going to survive.
Wow. The wasting state.
Right. It is the most dangerous, devastating form. So 45 million children are in this state right now around the world. I can cite all the different countries that are suffering the most. And I think the part that most breaks my heart is we know it's not easy, it's complicated, but we actually know what can help. We just need resources. And we need the will to be able to do it.
Man, so good. What, I know I think I know the answer to this question, but as you entered into this work, what really attracted you to it to say, man, I feel like this is a calling in my life, or I feel very much called and connected. Like, what really attracted you to step into this particular role?
There's a comment that someone or a few folks have said to me that I gently push back. They say, hey, you're no longer a pastor. And I push back because I say, well, I'm no longer pastoring a local church, but it's my faith and my calling that has compelled me here. And because I think scripture says, feed the poor. I don't think you need a PhD in Greek or Hebrew hermeneutics, to do a deep exegesis. I'm trying to impress people with my theological degree here.
No, you're good.
You're good. But I think we can agree that in a very challenging, polarizing time, there should be a few things that we can agree with. And for me, one of them is that people need nourishment to have any chance to flourish in their life. Imagine a child, whether they're in second grade or in junior high school or high school. You guys work a lot with youth, and I love you guys so much for your commitment. But imagine that kid, teenager, trying to study on an empty stomach. And here's the thing. I bet you people that are listening right now, some of them know exactly what I mean.
Man.
It's real. It is very real, and we can do something about that. And I'm so grateful that there are leaders and pastors who care for our youth in that holistic way. And I say, let's never grow timid in saying that Jesus is the bread of life. But thank you for loving people enough to ask the question, are you hungry? Is there anything that we can do? Where Bread for the World comes in is that we work upstream. So if there's a big river, there's that phrase where people say, you can't just give people fish. You got to teach them how to fish. It's beautiful. It's actually a little more complicated than that.
All right.
In addition to that, we've got to ask, why is there even a need for hunger to exist in the wealthiest nation in the world?
Wow.
Why is it that 45 million children in the world suffer from wasting when we know there's enough food in the world? Why is it that in the United States, 35 to 40% of all the food that's produced is wasted, thrown out? Like, these are the questions we've got to ask. You got to ask, why is it that some people have access to the river and others don't have access to the river?
Wow.
Why are some fish very polluted in this section of the river and other sections, man, it's just pristine, healthy fish?
Yeah.
So we're working upstream, helping impact legislation and policies that ultimately will help people and help churches, help organizations, including probably some of your favorite Christian charities, have the resources to do its work. I'm not a fan of politics. I've written a book about politics.
You have.
I am in this space. I'm not a fan of politics. I don't believe politics is the ultimate answer. I don't believe that politicians are the saviors of our world, of our nation.
Yeah.
But here's why politics matter.
Okay.
Politics matter because it influences policies, and policies always impact people.
It's good. It's good.
And more often than not, it impacts people that are quote unquote vulnerable. And when people don't have access to come to a table, and sadly, I would say, you know, in our political system, you almost have to have resources, you have to have stuff, wealth, to have your voices heard. So I mean, I don't want to go into all the details, but if I told you how much money pharmaceuticals spend lobbying in this country,
wow.
And so my question to the church is, well, how is it that people that are struggling with hunger have their voices heard? My hope is that it's the church.
Yeah, that's good.
It's the church that raises our voice. It's our youth leaders and our youth pastors that are saying, hey, we have kids that are good kids. Coming from families that are working their hardest, doing their darn best, that are struggling with hunger, and we've got to be able to do more as a country.
That's so good. Now, with that, let's stay right there. When you talk about getting that awareness to the local church, to the youth pastor, is there a way, you know, in what you guys are doing with Bread for the World, that someone, I mean, because that's who's listening to this podcast, is going to be, we have students who are part of our program, youth pastors, youth leaders, and everybody in between. So if they were to reply to us, man, love what Pastor Eugene is doing, how do we get connected, or how do we help? What will be the response?
Yeah, I love that. So number one, check out bread.org.
Bread.org. Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, it's not your typical church website.
Okay.
Because it's pretty wonky. It's pretty intense.
Okay.
This farm bill is a 1,000-page legislation.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I have a group of people that are wonky brainiacs studying, analyzing things. But number one is bread.org.
Okay.
Two is email me if you're interested in learning more. president@bread.org.
Oh, you got the president in your... Hey, that's an A, man.
Hey, sometimes you got to flex. Sorry. No. So president@bread.org. And then the third thing is I'll connect you with one of our organizers. Many of them are pastors or former pastors that can maybe help you form something like a program around... And here's our main thing is we ask students or just churches to consider hosting an offering of letters. We ask them to write letters to their members of Congress to simply say, I care about the 45 million children.
Wow.
Would you do something? And we want our elected leaders to know they work for the people. Like we need to voice to them that we care about this. And we're going to keep writing you. We want to visit you in your office, not in an uncivil way, not in a in a threatening way, but just respectfully to say, Mr. or Mrs. Congressman or woman, senators, we want you to take heart, and so we build a relationship with them in order to be able to do this. Here's the last thing that I'll share. When I speak with pastors, senior pastors, associate youth leaders, they get a little nervous. Because one of the phrases that they'll respectfully say is, Pastor Eugene, I just don't think that we should be engaged in politics. And I hear where you're coming from. I think what you're trying to say is that as Christians, we should not be part of partisan politics. And And there's a difference between partisan politics, where our affiliation and our loyalty and allegiance is simply to promote one party over the other. Politics is about the art of governance. We need a healthy politics in our nation, which is why you could make a case that we have unhealthy politics right now, because we have unhealthy governance. We have polarization. We have unhealthy leaders. So this is a way for us as Christians to be engaged citizens in a civil, respectful way, advocating for what we believe to be foundational for human flourishing. We want all of our kids to have enough to remove that barrier, whether it's here or whether it's in another country somewhere else.
That's so good. And I love just the way you articulate that. And I think it's so important because, I've heard that as well, as far as, politics and the pulpit and if this is a place for that and just a difference of opinions or, just the conversation, the tension point of that. But I think, I agree with you 100%. I think this is something that we can all agree, man, we don't want to see any child or any person who is one here in America or anywhere around the world who are in that state of hunger, and that waste state of hunger. And I so appreciate, man, your work and what you're doing. I know a lot of times it feels like you're swimming upstream yourself, just trying to get it done. And we are just standing with you, praying for you and everything. My last question would be this. What is your hope for the future of this work? What is the hope for? And I even say, and not to put you on the spot, but like, is it that the hope is that there will never be a need for a bread for the world, but in the right now, what's your hope for the future of this work?
Well, Matt, when you got really serious here, I thought you were about to announce that you were running for senator.
Oh, no. Listen, no. I'm not doing that.
I'm just kidding. No.
That is not what they want from me.
Yeah, it's a great question. Because I think one of the things that we're missing today in our society and even in church leadership is imagination. If we're not careful, we're just going to be doing our same old. And then we start being in the business of preservation. So we've got to start thinking about what is an imagination. There's an author by the name of Walter Brueggemann who writes a book about prophetic imagination, about what the world looks like. Bread for the World's, our mission is to help end hunger in the United States and around the world. Sounds ambitious. I actually believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that we can do it. Firmly believe that we can end extreme poverty around the world, people that are surviving on less than $2.15 a day. But there are real challenges. But that's what we believe. And yes, I really want to be able to think about a time when Bread for the World doesn't exist. And I can join your multimedia team. That's what I would love. But the challenges are real. The challenges are real in our nation. When I look up around the world right now, conflict, the biggest driver of hunger, war, climate, issues of corruption, sadly, that has to be named as well. And then the fact that rising costs. So, but that's what I dream of. And I am so grateful for, our pastors and leaders and people that are watching this because we do care. We're here because of faithfulness and obedience to God's call, but because we have this theology of human flourishing. Like we believe God's intent and desire is for people to flourish. And that's the reason why we're so passionate about teaching that Jesus is the bread of life. And that if you've been in leadership, you know that we have to have a holistic understanding of what flourishing looks like.
Well, Pastor G, man, thank you so much. First, for just your leadership, your passion for this work, man. I know, one, our students here in the Inland Empire in California. They have been blessed by your words and your work and your ministry. I know our Youth Pastor Summit audience, they have been blessed in the past and will be in 2025. Will you join us for 2025? But man, we're so grateful for your work, and thank you for just taking time out of your busy schedule to just hang out and talk to our Chasing Elephant podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, hey, we will make sure all of the information that Pastor Eugene shared is email the Bread for the World website, and how you can get involved more with Bread for the World will be in our show notes. And until next time, hey, I just want to tell you, always make sure that you do everything that you can to be intentional every day of your life about being the best version of yourself. And happy Thanksgiving. Oh, really quick, do you guys have any Thanksgiving like traditions in your home? Like, what are some of any Thanksgiving traditions happening in the Cho house?
You're about to open up a new podcast here. Yeah. Listen, so we being Korean Americans.
Yeah.
I don't know if our kids have ever had turkey.
What?
I know it's a different podcast.
Yo, that's crazy. Y'all never had turkey?
I don't know if they have.
Oh,
It's always about Korean barbecue.
Listen.
Can I just drop the mic now?
Yeah, listen. I mean, but
I know.
But you want to?
I know we're bad parents, man. I know.
I know you're such a man of God, but no turkey on Thanksgiving. At least Thanksgiving.
All right, I repent. We'll feed our kids turkey one of the days.
So even on Thanksgiving,
because this meat called Korean galbi. Galbi, short ribs.
Okay.
It's probably the quintessential meal for us as Koreans. So on any special occasion, when that comes out,
yes,
it's a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
All right, I mean, you go there culturally. I can't argue that, but I will
stop being culturally insensitive, man.
But you said you're a proud American with no turkey.
Oh
man, no, I'm so sorry, but listen, thank you. I should have asked that in the beginning. And so, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, whether you are having turkey,
please don't cancel me.
They won't. They might just go and try that, you know. And so, but man, thank you so much. Enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday with friends and family. Be safe out there, and until next time, we'll see you. God bless you. Be safe. Peace out.